Greetings from the far side of the galaxy. I'm Fuuri, your host of the most, here to bring you a story about titties. And these titties, they smell like bacon. Remember that I do these videos by request, so leave whichever Housamo hero you want next in the comments below. Coming next week, probably, maybe, we'll see, is Housamo, but today we have someone else. Today's Housamo hero is the, gastric goober with, I don't know many words that start with G. I'll just fix that in post.
No, you ain't.
I know, Sandy. I know. Today's Housamo hero is the one, the only Ganglie. There's no spoilers for the main quest, but do be wary for the summer ocean adventure and the desert journey events. Ganglie is a get that out of here. Ganglie is a bored transient from the world of Arai, the world based on Chinese mythology and folklore. He's a third year at Umamichi Academy in Taito Ward, making him one of the few third years in the game. Despite Umamichi being a school for delinquents, the guild associated with it are the Asakusa Gurus. We don't know much about the Gurus, not their mission statement or even the identity of their guildmaster. What we do know about the Gurus is that all of their members seem to have some sort of moral dysfunction. Aside from Ganglie, their numbers include Gandharva, Matsumi, and Licho. As for their dysfunction, Licho's prideful, Gandharva likes to gamble, and well, Ganglie, he's a lazy slut. The only thing Ganglie puts any effort into is getting out of work and hitting on both men and women. Although Ganglie's best flirting efforts usually end up in depression at best or mortal peril at worst. Now ain't that the most accurate bi-representation I've ever seen? His failures don't bother him too much because if there's anything Ganglie hates, it's effort. He doesn't even have the work ethic to get mad, he just shrugs it off and keeps going. It's one of Ganglie's better qualities and thankfully Life Wonders likes to show it off. His hatred of effort goes so far that he's barely, if ever, seen using his sacred artifact. His rule and role are unknown, but what else is new? His sacred artifact is a hoe that gives him control over the flow of the Milky Way? Okay, so that is literally what his research file says, and like, if that's true, then shouldn't he be able to move planets and stars and even the Earth, because that's all part of the Milky Way? Is Ganglie one of the strongest people in Housamo? Putting all of that aside for a later date, his artifact is really only used for controlling water. I suppose he does that by like controlling the moon to shape the tides, but I really have like no idea. Like I said before, he's loath to use his artifact and quite frankly doesn't really need to. Despite appearances and personality, Ganglie is actually quite talented. Like, he learned how to surf from Typhoon, and he's actually pretty good at it even without using his sacred artifact. He's also a skilled sailor, and apparently a general since he led a navy back in his home world, which is kind of insane. Those two facts are a reference to the character he's based on, that being Zubaiji from the story Journey to the West. Journey to the West is a pretty long story that follows the protagonist, the priest named San Zhang, as he journeys to the West to retrieve Buddhist scriptures. Along the way, the heavens connive to give him 3 allies. There's the formal evildoer Sun Wukong, the lecher kicked out of heaven Zubaiji, and Sha Wujing, who was also kicked out of heaven but for different reasons. The story is primarily episodic, with the quartet meeting different dangers before overcoming them and moving on. One of the primary causes of trouble is Zubaiji due to his habit of giving into vice. The habit was so bad that characters in the story and sometimes the narrator themselves just refer to Baiji as the idiot. Zubaiji's problem was mainly with Wukong, whose skills he was eternally jealous of. Which is quite ironic since Zubaiji was actually a very accomplished person. Back in heaven, he was the commander-in-chief to 80,000 sailors. Even his weapon, a hoe with teeth made of jade and adorned with gold, was crafted for him personally. And he knew how to use it too. The story has many instances of Baiji murdering demons with it in graphic detail. The hoe had more powers than Superman. It could shoot fire and light, create storms, and transform. It says a lot about Zhu Baiji that despite kicking him out, Heaven didn't try taking it from him. Sadly, it wasn't enough to stop him from getting drunk and hitting on the moon goddess, which got him sentenced to 1,000 mortal lives that would all end in a love tragedy. Nor did it stop him from falling into a pig well and getting cursed to reincarnate with a porkish face. My mans did take many L's, but at the end of the story, he gets his W, becoming the one who gets to eat the sacrificial offerings. Maybe Ganglie will get a happy ending once Husamo's story is over, but unless Life Hunters picks up the pace, that'll happen sometime around the heat death of the universe. Now does seem like a good time to get into Life Hunters' interpretations of the source material. First, I need to address this whole naming confusion. You see, neither Zhu Baiji or Ganglie is his original name. It was originally General Tianpeng. However, after getting kicked out of heaven, he changed his name to Zhu Ganglie, which means strong-maned pig. However, Sun Zhang then renamed him Zhu Baiji to remind him of his Buddhist obligations. Since Housamo pulls him from before he meets Sun Zhang, his Japanese name of Goryu gets localized into Ganglie. And that is why you'll see him called Zhu Baiji in the book, Goryu in Japanese, and Ganglie in English. Now let's get back to the actual point of the video. To begin with, Ganglie is just Zhu Baiji. It's even joked about in the Desert Journey event, which is based on Journey to the West. While every other character gets a costume for their roles, Ganglie complains that his are just his normal clothes. He doesn't need a costume when he's just playing himself. Beyond that, Ganglie's personality is pretty spot on for Zhu Baiji. Even the part about Baiji being jealous of Wukong is mirrored in the Desert Journey event when Ganglie is jealous of Hanuman. His sacred artifact is also pretty close to the one in the book, specifically being a 9-tooth rake with gold rings and immense power, although Ganglie's is missing the jade. Ganglie also shares Baiji's surprising level of competency that only shows when things get rough. They also share the same backstory, being heavenly generals who are kicked out due to their uncontrollable boners. I know this interpretation section is a bit short, but there's only so many ways I can say they're the same character. So I suppose now is as good a time as any to get into Ganglie's backstory right after these messages. Remember to like and subscribe, donate to my Ko-fi and Patreon, check out my Hussamo Heroes playlist, and that I stream on Mondays and Fridays. Now, back to show. We begin with Ganglie being kicked out of heaven for being lascivious, and that is also where we end because that is literally all we know. Like, no, seriously, that one line from his research file is literally all we have. And the most we get from that research file was that he was the head of the Navy who got kicked out for being too horny. That's it. And I find that really strange too because Ganglie is in a lot. He was a major character in the Summer Ocean Adventure and the Desert Journey event. He's also pretty prominent in the Golden Treasure Ship event and countless smaller roles in other things. He has four side quests and a character quest. That's more than some characters from the story, and he doesn't talk about his past in any of it. Since his entire backstory is like 2 sentences at best, I suppose I just gotta move on to his character analysis. Ganglie is a complicated character. On one hand, he's another Master Roshi or Jiraiya-like character. Actually, I think the better comparison is Zulong, although they're both based on Zhu Baiji, who probably had a lot to do with inspiring the archetype. Whoa, we are getting way too off topic with that. Leave a comment if you want to see me cover Dragon Ball like I do a Hussamo Hero, but for now, let's get back to Ganglie. And on the other hand, Ganglie can be a pretty solid source of life advice. Look at the way he and Seth interact in the Desert Journey event. Just like Sha Wujing and Zhu Baiji, Ganglie acts as the foil to Seth's hard-headed and stubborn nature, actually giving some sagely advice about leaning on your friends and slacking off when things get hard. And once more, that side of him is contrasted from his usual reckless and stupid nature. The Ganglie moment I remember most is from the Summer Ocean event, right when Ahab ties himself to the Black Storm. Despite leaving the ship to Ida, his final command actually leaves Ganglie in charge. And despite his usual attitude, the fact that he accepts the sacrifice in final command shows a surprising level of maturity. He also exhibits a seemingly uncharacteristic maturity in his untranslated character quest. Despite what you may think about his character, he actually tells others in the quest that no means no. I can definitely see Life Hunters doing that to smooth the abrasiveness of his character, but it's also in character for Ganglie of all people to know when to just accept rejection and move on. And his character quest also shows he has a surprising amount of cunning and guile, especially when he fights. Rather than fight the mobs who aren't happy to learn no means no, he runs away, luring them into the sewers to flush them away. His methods are indicative of his lacking physical ability and experience leading a literal navy. He may not like fighting, but when push comes to shove, he's quick-witted, crushing his enemies in a single powerful move. Now if Life Hunters would just give us more about his past in the Navy, that'd be great. While Life Hunters hopefully gets to doing that, I'll get to covering his units. Ganglie has 2 normal units and 1 limited unit from the Desert Journey event. His normal 3 and 4 star are exactly the same down to the skill evo, so let's just cover them both. They're both water attribute and sword type units, despite hoes being more similar to spears if anything. Their first skill is Seafarer, which deals nearly double damage to swimmer type enemies. I feel like I can make a pullout joke here because swimmers also refers to that white stuff, if you know what I mean. After that is Gourmand, which has a 100% chance to give up to 700 HP to himself at phase start. Might be a reference to Baiji getting the job as the guy who eats sacrifices, or a general reference to Ganglie's gluttonous nature. Thirdly is Husamo's bicycle, cause every transient has been there and done that, blood of the beast. Blah blah blah, tenacity to self after moving at 100%, blah blah blah. Finally is Battlefield Rigor, a reference to Ganglie's cunning and guile. At phase start, he applies defense up to self and allies and up to 10 CP in 1 square at 100%. A subpar skill that does get better thanks to a skill evolution. Rather than getting a cool name, it's just called Battlefield Rigor Plus. How creative. It keeps the defense up and CP bonus, but gives him 2 new on-miss abilities. On miss, he applies Spirit and Null debuff to allies in 1 square at 90 and 70% respectively. I wish Life Hunters made more on miss skills since it actually creates an interesting playstyle. Not that Battlefield Rigor is a good example of that because the buffs it gives aren't that good. His limited unit is from the Desert Journey event and it's water attribute and spear type like his normal unit should have been. It's taken from right smack dab in the middle of the event when Ganglie uses his artifact to do some surfing. It didn't work since he got in trouble for using his sacred artifact so recklessly. It's a 4-star unit and its skills are as follows. First is Wave Commander. When appearing, he gives himself acceleration and up to 80 CP 100% of the time. Damn, I know I rag on CP, but 80 is such a huge number that it has a huge impact. His second skill, Voyager, has 2 parts. Part 1 is that he applies remove debuff to himself 100% of the time at phase start. Part 2 is that he deals nearly double damage to all Dark Lord and Daughter of the Fourth Heaven enemies. This skill is actually a reference to him being part of the quest to slay Housamo in the Desert Journey event. In the Daughter of the Fourth Heaven part is a reference to him being able to fight Humao's wife, although Aquaman doesn't even have that skill. Fourth up is Flirt, which has a 40% chance to apply charm to his enemies and burn to himself when attacking. This is a reference to Ganglie often striking out, but in his character quest he says he has about a 30% success rate. Meaning, if I'm doing my math correctly, he should have a 70% chance of inflicting burn on himself. Finally is Mobilized General, which has 3 parts. First part, when attacking, he applies weakness to hit units 90% of the time. The second and third part is that he applies combo to himself and is immune to skill lock, both at 90%. A pretty bangin' skill that only gets better thanks to a skill evolution. Mobilized General Plus, creative names are creative, adds 1 thing. And that's nearly double damage against enemies with Obstruct. Going back to his normal units, they're frankly not that good. They have no real way of dealing significant damage, so you'll likely be best served spamming their on-miss skills. That being said, other units can give the same buffs while also killing the enemy, so why bother with him? The best thing about them is that they're generic, so the team composition doesn't matter, just put them with a few units that are actually good and you should be fine. Thankfully, his limited unit is a much needed improvement. Getting combo after moving is actually super good because it means on-attack skills have the chance to proc twice. That means you get to roll that 40% chance for charm twice. And with his skill lock resistance at 90%, he's virtually immune to it, which is so nice. And he can inflict 2 statuses, Obstruct and Weakness, so he works pretty good with both Bale and Tendalos. To wind down this video, let's hit up Ganglie's relationship chart. On one side, Seth likes Ganglie. Quick side note, suck it, everyone who got on my case for shipping Seth x Ganglie. Probably due to them actually being very good friends, it was Ganglie who taught Seth how to surf after all. Ifrit dislikes Ganglie due to his hot-blooded nature not vibing with Ganglie's sheer laziness. And Housamo dislikes Ganglie for 2 reasons. 1. Ganglie's work ethic is trash, and 2. Ganglie was part of the team that tried to kill him back in Journey to the West. On the flip side, Ganglie himself likes Licho because the latter is willing to do like 90% of the work Ganglie should. And Ganglie dislikes Ahab since he actually forces Ganglie to do his job. He also hates Housamo because, you know, he forces Ganglie to work and they're enemies in the source material. Overall, Ganglie is a pretty cool character. I can see why Life Hunters uses him whenever they can. His lazy lechery can be used for comedy, but when times get serious, he can actually be used for a cool moment or two. There's a nice contrast in that, methinks. Of course, that means Ganglie gets Fuuri's official stamp of approval. But real quick, before you go, Ganglie does have one loading screen he shares with Ahab. I don't know what it says, so maybe someone in the comments can fill that in while I move on to our Patreon shoutouts. For our 3-star supporters, we have special thanks to Prisma144, Zoro Ichao, and 87 Werehog. No 4-star blah blah blah, you know how it be. And for our 5-star supporters, we have... First, we have Mahoghasaur, who managed to actually beat the endless mode of Tetris. And then we have Vanilla Flower, who never gets the Z Tetraminos. And Unknown RC, who never fails his quick drops. And finally, Poor Mage, who never fails to get an all clear. Thank you for watching. Do be sure to like and subscribe and check out some of my other stuff. And as always, this is your host Fuuri, signing out.